Previously on Comic Book Chronicles.
Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre, #1. Am I even allowed to say that word on here? Like, are they going to bust me for, I don't know, promoting indecency or whatever? Oh, I guess we'll find out. Hippopotamus. But yeah, Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre is perhaps against the odds a real book. And honestly, it's one of the most brilliantly ludicrous titles I've ever seen. I mean, how can you not at least be curious about it? It's right up there like with Snakes on a Plane and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So this book takes place in the 80s at a hippopotamus disco-themed amusement park that's run by a secret drug lord. It's a comedy, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, these two, 80s action hero types are trying to bust this drug lord for different reasons, but he's got a new drug called Coke 45. If you know, you know. And by the end of this issue, the heroes are basically trapped in the amusement park with a bunch of drug-addled, murderous hippopotami. Thankfully, this issue generates enough laughter, or at least it did for me, to live up to its ludicrous title and premise. They come at you pretty fast. I particularly enjoyed the part where one of the heroes uses one of the henchmen to, let's say, access a zip line. I thought that was an interesting way to do that. Also, apparently in high-pressure situations, you don't press buttons, you boop buttons. That's good to know. The art really masterfully matches the tone of the writing. I like the texture of what we're seeing here. You know, this is quality ridiculousness. I do believe that's a good way to refer to it. So I owe an apology to the creative team behind Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre #2. See, when I covered the first issue of the book several weeks ago, I misnamed it, and I need to correct that right now. Because you see, this book is not simply called Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre, it's the laser drug force in the Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre. Clearly, someone in the creative process decided that there weren't enough words in the title. We need more syllables! More! But yeah, this is our sophomore issue of this comedic parody type book, where we have a couple of 80s action type heroes, one male and one female, trapped in an amusement park with a bunch of murderous, drug-addled hippopotami. The hippos are bright purple, by the way. Did I mention that? No apparent reason, they're just purple. There's two things that really stand out to me about this book at this point. The first is the art by James Edward Clark, who does everything from penciling to lettering. It's very expressive, very flamboyant from a facial standpoint. For instance, we've got bookend intro and outro scenes here from this sort of Nancy Reagan-ish character, and her face is just a huge range of exaggerated emotions that's tremendous to look at, and it's not just her, it's most of the characters in this book. And the second is that the jokes present in the dialogue come at you from various different directions that you're not expecting. It's like the equivalent of, looking for a frisbee to come at you, but then getting it right here, and that happens multiple times in this issue alone. For instance, there's a scene where Miguel, our anti-hero character, accosts Agent Nebraska for being like a privileged special agent type with her fancy yachts and her 4-slice toasters. And you're just like, what? 4-slice what? And I like that. The jokes land, but they don't land from the direction you think they're gonna land. Quality ridiculousness is what I believe I called the first issue of Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre. And in issue 2, the ridiculousness somehow gets ridiculouser. And I am here for it. folks, my guest today is a radio personality, performer, and author. He's been a mainstay on Toronto radio for many years now. You can hear him weekday afternoons on Q107 in Toronto, where he's known as Fearless Fred. And if you don't believe he's fearless, let me tell you the name of the comic book he's currently writing for Mad Cave Studios. Issues 1 and 2 of Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre are available in comic shops and digitally now. Issue 3 is in stores April 22nd. Fred Kennedy, ladies and gentlemen. Fred, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I'm excited that issue 3 is about to make its debut onto the global stage.
Absolutely. Okay, well, for the folks who haven't read issues 1 and 2, can you tell us what the book is about? Tell us what's going on here,
It,
Fred.
it's a story about justice and morality, conquering the villainies of drug abuse and socialism. It's there's a big amusement park. It is called Disco Hippo Wonderland. It is owned by a guy who is actually a drug lord, where he's been working on this top secret cocaine called Coke 45, the most powerful cocaine ever known to man.
Mm.
The feds are about to bust it, and then this near do well renegade cop comes in because his brother is hostage, and in the process, everything falls apart. Disco, the guy who runs the part, his name is Jans Muir Disco, but everyone
Mm.
calls him more Disco. He dumps all his experimental cocaine into the hippo tanks to cover his escape. And then when a hurricane moves in, the police are trying to stop Disco. He's trying to get away. But and it sounds very complicated, but when you read the book, it all flows very seamlessly.
Yeah,
It's like
there's
it's like Jurassic Park meets Narcos Mexico if it was written by the creators of The Naked Gun, is how I can consistently describe it.
that is a great pitch. And you know what? It flows into what I'm going to ask you next here because you read the book, and Fred, I've never wanted to ask a writer this more. How did this happen? Like how did this, what's the genesis of this idea? What I mean, tell me what's going on here.
Well, I was having a text conversation with my buddy Adam Gorham, who's one of
Okay.
my favorite human beings in the world, and we were coming up with like not story ideas, but just like things that we saw that would make for good stories. And he had forwarded me an article about the culling of Pablo Escobar's hippos in Colombia, and then which is the story. For those who don't know, he had all these hippos, and allegedly he would feed people to them, and then they would mangle the bodies, and it was a big intimidation thing. And when they raided his compound, they didn't know what to do with the hippos, so they just let them go. So the hippos are in Colombia, and they're causing a lot of problems because they're very aggressive. They've got no natural predators. There is no rainy season. They're so heavy, they change the water flow of rivers because they're always hanging around on the shorelines, and they tramp down the vegetation. And so
Yeah.
these waterways are being altered by these hippos. So they got to call them. That was the initial idea of the story. And I sort of threw this very silly, over the top thing together that was actually sort of built around the Righteous Gemstones. You know, they have their big compound with the amusement park in the
Yeah.
Righteous Gemstones on their property.
Yeah.
That was the initial version of it. Is it was a private compound with an amusement park on it. And I was trying to figure out who I'd work on it with. And then I was talking with James. When I asked him if he wanted to work on it, I was basically like, listen, I want to do something with you. What do you want to do with this story? And so I gave him free reign for us to do something together. Because I think that a lot of people have this idea that when they're a writer in comics, and sometimes this is how it is. You throw an idea at an artist and they just want to draw your script.
Yeah.
But James is not that kind of artist. James wants to have a say in things, and I'm aware of that. So it's very much a give and take. And anybody that's read his other stuff like Evil or Tales to Enlighten, he's got a very grindhouse 70s indie comics aesthetic. And he wanted to do it more grindhouse, and I wanted to make it even sillier. And we beat our heads against each other's so much doing the story, but I think that is what makes it what it is.
Yeah.
Is the grindhouse stuff that James does, and sometimes he'll change my jokes, and then I get mad, and I'm like, I don't like that, and he was like, well, I don't think we need to do that, but I think that like it's this argument with us, but an unwavering belief in the product that we're making. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that relationship is really what has created the story, is the collaborative effort of the writing and the storytelling and all that. Also, another big thing that happens is when James does, so we don't work on like a script. We threw a script out. We had a script for the pitch. We scripted the pitch.
Okay.
But what we started doing was we created like it's like the old school Marvel method.
Yeah.
But instead of like a paragraph being the whole script, we would create a beat sheet of the issue.
Okay.
The whole issue gets a beat sheet, like, and every page has like a point on the beat sheet.
Okay.
Then James thumbs it all out and gives me blank thumbs, and then I put all the dialogue in.
Wow.
But I will put like twice as much dialogue as what is feasible to fit in a panel.
Mm-hmm.
I will pepper it with dialogue and jokes and all these things, because it makes it easier for us to refine and edit when there's, the hardest thing to do is stretching. Stretching is the hardest thing to do when you don't have enough story and you're stretching things.
Yeah.
When you have more than you need, it's much easier to pare it down.
Uh-huh.
So that's the process that we're doing, is lots of dialogue, paring it down. And sometimes we'll change the panels to keep certain jokes that we both really like, which has happened a few times. But yeah, it's a very unique process, and sometimes there's headaches on the editorial side. But
Yeah.
our editor James, because there's artist James and editor James. Editor James is the best. He champions us like nobody's beeswax. We both are huge James fans.
I was gonna say, yeah, James has been has done an interview with me before. I'm a James fan myself. So
yeah,
but yeah, you know, artist James Edward Clark, his art is so flamboyant and expressive. I mean, it's such a perfect match for your writing. I mean, what does he bring to the table that other artists might not? Is it that grindhouse aesthetic? I mean, what do you think makes him unique for this project?
Oh, he's got chops, man. Like, James knows how to tell a story. James knows the story that he wants to tell, and he has an unwavering faith in what it is that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that reads on the page. And I think there's some people that will like that can draw a panel and it feels flat. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not saying that, oh, they're not very good. It's like sometimes it comes down to a lack of clarity between what it is you're trying to do, what's on the paper, what's in the script. But James, if I don't tell him what to do, James will figure it out. He knows what he wants, because the big thing that I think we're doing is we come up with the whole story first. So we have the whole arc done. We know where we need to go. And I think that a lot of times people spin their tires when they don't know what direction they're going in. And I relate radio to comics and comics to radio constantly, because I feel like execution of a good break on the radio is very akin to execution of a good comic. You have to know you're out, and your out is where are you going with the break? What's the punchline? So you open the mic, do the call letters, and then you lead into what it is that you're talking about. If you're just rambling and you have no point, it tells.
Yeah.
If you open the mic and you know the point you're trying to make, you're going to be going in that direction the whole time. And it's the same with a good comic script. Every issue, every scene has a point. And if you know where you're going, you'll get there. And every step you take is a step in that direction. What ends up happening, I find, with a story that's meandering is they start going over here, but they're trying to get you here, you know?
Right.
And so we've really avoided that with us working together. And James has a natural instinct for it. And I think the end result is something that is incredibly, incredibly unique.
The collaborative process between you and James, now that I'm hearing about it, is so interesting, because when you read one of the issues, it feels like you're in this sort of comedic flow state. And I talked about this when I did issue 2, when I reviewed it. You know, you're looking for the jokes to come from this direction, but then they come from this direction, and it's like, you never know where they're going to come from. I mean, Fred, do you have a comedic writing background? I mean, I know you wrote Dead Romans, but I mean, do you have a background in comedy?
my radio show is very silly. But not like honk honk. Like I abhor like the cliche radio bits.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way, and I felt like in my career I was pressured a lot to do that. And there's a great Canadian voice artist. His name's Jamie Watson,
Mm-hmm.
and he is like a radio VO guy. So like the voice of the station, the like you're listening to blah 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 blah. Like the voice, it's a station voice is the term, and he is like a station voice from the 90s, and he would write all his own copy, and he was a big script writer, and I worked with him for a few years, and he really taught me the beats of comedy. And if they see the punchline coming, it's never going to be funny.
Right.
You have to lead them here, but then hit them off here. It's like you hit them off at the pass kind of thing. And the bit you talked about in the video with your picket fences and your 4-slice toasters,
Mm-hmm.
dude, a 4-slice toaster is the epitome of decadence as far as I'm concerned. Like, to me, a 4-slice toaster is the fanciest toaster ever. And when you're like a 4-slice toaster, I'm like, yeah, that's fancy. Like, I hate like having to make toast twice, because you put the toast down and it goes, and then you take your toast out, and then you make your next set of toast.
Yeah.
And the next set of toast doesn't toast as perfect as the first set. It's slightly lighter because the toaster's getting too hot, and it's a fire hazard. But if you have a 4-slice toaster with like the digital time, like, come on, that is it. That is delicacy. You know what I mean?
Now, Fred, have you made it far enough in life where you own a 4-slice toaster, or are you still working toward that goal?
My wife got a 4-slice toaster for Christmas.
All right.
Because of that joke in the issue, because like one of my sons for breakfast, he always wants 3 pieces of toast, always. And I was still doing toast for him, and I was like getting so frustrated because like, but then I'm shaving 2 minutes of prep time every morning with that 4-slice toaster. It is a godsend. It is absolutely amazing. Never look a gift toaster in the mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Words to live by, my friend. Words to live by.
My jokes come that way, and then James's come from another way. And I think that it's the balance of those two things that really works out. And sometimes I don't even have an idea about what I'm going to say in the scripts until I see what James has got. And then we really know the characters. And at this point, like the back and forth with Miguel and Clark, Nebraska, is so goofy. But what's interesting to me is that they're such similar characters.
Yeah,
they're very similar characters, and that is a James thing.
Really?
Initially, what happened was because Point Break was a big lead-in point. Point Break was a big, like, Johnny Utah, Clark, Nebraska. Clark, Nebraska was originally this giant corn-fed Midwestern crew-cut suit-wearing Fed. That's originally what he was.
Okay.
And when James joined me, he goes, "We gotta have Nebraska be a woman." He goes, for 2 reasons. I don't want to be drawing dudes beating up women, because we had decided that Disco was going to have his assassin nuns, his attendants were going to be there, and we didn't want to there was a cool, like, don't get me wrong, watching ninja movies from the 90s, for some reason female ninjas fighting a dude is different than nuns fighting dudes. I don't know why.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, I know, but like, it makes, as soon as he said it, it's like, yeah, you're right. So we decided to make Nebraska a woman. And then the big thing was there can never be this like tropey, I'm by the book and blah, 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 blah. No, she's just as bad, if not worse than him. Like, she's insane. She's crazy. And she's got all these horrible qualities. And that to us was really fun to do. And so, but the thing is, at the end of the day, they're both the same type of character. They both want to look good all the time. And there's a funny scene, and I think it's coming up in issue 3, where both of them at the same time are like, "Oh no, my hair!" Both of them say it at the exact same time.
Wow.
And it's like one of my favorite things because the way it's positioned, like, did she say my hair? And then no, he said they both said, "Oh no, my hair." And there's like that obsession with having to look cool all the time. And the way James is like every pose that they're in is almost like it could be on a poster. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
the way he's like the way he's lighting his cigarettes all the time, like he's so cool. Like, and all of it is like that with the cool hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're very similar characters. And if it hadn't been for James saying like we got to make Nebraska a woman, the vibe would have been very different, and I don't think it would have been nearly as funny. It works way better. It does work way better, and I don't know, like I wish I could go back and like take a look at some of the initial concepts because B. Benavidez sort of becomes a character in issue 2 in the initial draft. So we actually had a script for a scene that happens before the opening of issue 1.
Okay.
And it was very different. In the initial version, Miguel's character is very closely built upon Tequila from Hard Boiled.
Okay.
Chow Yun-Fat's character in that movie. And there's a scene in the beginning of the movie, in the beginning of the comic story, where he goes to a jazz bar and he's playing with the jazz band, but it's like a Chuck E. Cheese for grown-ups.
Oh,
and the band is all animatronic except for him. And it's like this space-themed Chuck E. Cheese bar and it's like, the point is he plays Astro Jazz. And B was a waitress at this bar that he would go to, which was called the Crazy River. The bar was called the Crazy River after the Robbie Robertson song Somewhere Down the Crazy River, which I always argue is the worst song ever recorded. But so B was a waitress there, and they had this torrid on again, off again relationship. And then she ends up being hired to go undercover to work at Discow's big party that he's throwing.
Okay.
And that is what brings Miguel in. And that is how, and then we changed some stuff around.
Yeah.
So the original strings were there, but we tweaked a bunch of it. We cut right to the chase, got right to the amusement park. Yeah. And I think those were smart choices. But a lot of those initial jokes from the very first issue were all just repurposed.
Nice.
Like the whole part where the drug dealer is like, 1 gram, enough to turn a whole town into a mob of fornicating socialists. Like that was a scene. Like that was a full scene, sort of like Footloose.
Yeah.
The pastor doing the big speech. So we had a lot of that stuff in there. It was very much a product of like 80s movies. And now with James on board, I've made it weirder because he's so much more confident in being weirder. And it's made me more confident to make things really goofy and weird.
What jumped out at me from the first issue is, and I think I mentioned this in the video, is the zip line moment where I think Miguel uses a henchman as a human zip line. You know, is anything too over the top in a book like this? I mean, is there any place where you or James wanted to go and said, maybe not?
The thing with James is everything's on the table. There's no, but there are rules that we have, but we came up with our rules as we were going, taking a look at things that didn't fit. Initially, the scene where B finds them in the shack.
Yeah.
And she is saying, people were the joke was people were running this way and that, like a collection of marbles amid furiously hungry hippos. Something like that. I don't remember the exact wording was.
Yeah.
But then James messaged me. He goes, honestly, we can't do hungry hippo jokes because everyone's expecting a hungry hippo joke. The only time that rule got broken, and it sort of got broken, not even broken, it kind of got bent a bit, was the log line for the book is these hippos are hungry for blood. And that was, we decided was, because it's a slick log line.
Yeah.
And we decided it was okay because it's not in the story. It's about the story. It's not in the story. So that was all right. We also, no nudity. There's no nudity. There's no sex in the sense of like serious. Any sexual innuendos have to be so stupid and childish because the premise is is at the end of the day, it's a story that is meant to be targeting 1980s youth.
Yeah.
In the sense that when you grew up in that era, you'd watch these movies that are targeting children. They're insanely violent. And don't watch. I challenge someone to go watch the first episode of Darkwing Duck again. In the first episode of Darkwing Duck, a guy gets like mowed by a machine gun at point blank range and then dies. And then they straight up say, I bet we killed him that time. And it's like that was like the early 90s. That wasn't even the 80s.
No, yeah.
This was progressive, you know?
Mhm.
So we took a look at the things that were targeting youth in that era.
Yeah.
And so there's no foul language and there's no nudity and there's no sex. And the only time we allude to anything sex or sexual is very silly. Like, which she's like, I was smooched behind that shack. You'll live to smooch in another shack, you know, like that type of, and we think that's funny, but there's never going to be, there's a great line that one of my favorite radio bosses always told me. He's like, never be dirty, be naughty. Like in the sense of being like, hoo, 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 is funnier than being like, you know what I mean? I'm not a vulgar guy. I don't make vulgar type jokes in my personal life. So when I was doing this book, I wanted to keep it silly.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the stuff like those are really the only rules that we have. There's some rules about like plausibility because we've come up with a bunch of storylines. And this is the thing where I will go as crazy as I want to get. I will talk about how we should. There was a story idea where I was like, we're going to put them in space. We're going to do like a Moonraker storyline. And then James is like, I don't want to get too sci-fi. And I had another one where, and this actually, I don't know, I shouldn't give this away because we kind of modeled this one so it might happen.
Okay.
But we both were very big fans of the movie Inner Space. That's really all I can say. But
okay,
we got to get the second arc done before we can talk about our plans to do an Inner Space thing.
Well, I was going to say this first volume it's 4 issues, am I right?
It's 4 issues. We got 4 issues planned. We've already submitted for the second arc.
Yes. I love that.
I don't know where that's sitting right now. I've been told it looks really good. It looks really good, but I don't want to be like, oh, this is happening. And then it doesn't happen. That's always disappointing.
Yeah.
But I can say that it does involve ninjas.
Okay.
And it's really, and we both, so James and I keep talking about how every time we come up with an idea, it seems to be perpetuated in pop culture. And we both feel that ninjas are due for a big comeback anytime. Ninjas are going to become cool again.
Okay.
So we've got some and we have a full list of ninja rules.
Okay.
Like guidelines about ninjas that we've come up with that we have to follow in our story. Like only a ninja can kill a ninja. Like, and they're all built on these horrible direct to VHS movies that if you know anything about ninja movies in the 80s, a lot of times it's sort of like the original Power Rangers series. It's based on something and then they cut other things into it.
Now you're talking
so
my
it's
language.
Really like, yeah. So those ninja movies are sort of built like that. And so we're sort of modeling the arc that we pitched off of that. And it seems over the top and cuckoo, but it's very grounded in terms of like the rules and foundation that we've built, you know?
Yeah.
Which is silly.
Yeah, I mean, you've got rules you're following. It's almost you mentioned Darkwing Duck, which now after we're done here, I have to go watch the first episode. But
it's on a train. It happens on a train, by the way.
Of course it does. No, but I mean, it's almost got a kid show quality to it in the sense that you're going way over the top, but you're not going NC-17 over the top.
Totally. Yeah. The idea of it being introduced as a VHS movie being shown to kids as the story goes. Initially, I wanted to have some of the panels have like a digital VHS whir line on them.
Okay.
But when James came on board, I knew that wasn't going to work with James's art style. It would have contrasted with what he's doing already. Okay. So I think that it works on its own. Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So real quick, Fred, this is a question I've been asking a lot of different comic book creators lately, and I want to ask it to you. What's a good comic book or graphic novel to put in the hands of someone who's never read one before, besides Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre or Dead Romans or something else you've worked on? I mean, what's a good starter comic?
Like that, and so they've never read comics before ever, like not even superheroes or anything like that.
Nothing.
Like if they've got no real familiarity outside of like the movies, even.
Correct. Just
Uh,
assume
you know,
they've got nothing to work with.
I would want to say Kingdom Come, but the thing with Kingdom Come is it's too complicated. And
True.
I say that because there's a lot of characters in the it's beautiful, it's amazing, but there's a lot of stuff going on in there where unless you are like knowledgeable about superheroes,
DC.
the
Yeah.
characters that are being introduced are too much. And that's always been like my issue with a lot of of DC stuff is that they never held your hand. You know what I mean? There was no hand holding. And I remember one of my friends gave me Identity Crisis, and I was like, I wasn't a DC guy, so this is one of the best books ever written. You should read Identity Crisis. So I read it, and I was frustrated by not knowing what the hell was going on
Right.
because I didn't know who the characters were. So the context for the emotional rides just weren't there. If I
Yeah.
was going to give somebody a comic and they've never read comics before ever, outside of the movies, I would want to give them something specifically that's not like a superhero thing, that's not like a big two thing.
Yeah.
Uh I always want to gravitate towards the Parker series by Darwin Cook.
Okay.
That's one of my absolute favorites.
Okay.
Out of the four novels that he did before he passed, Slayground is probably my favorite. I think
Okay.
it's a ride, and you don't really need to know the characters. You're very much brought in. There's the guy. He's a criminal. He's this. He's got to survive in this abandoned amusement park, and the way Darwin Cook draws it, and that coloring on the pages is very cool. So I'd
Mhm.
say that. I'm a big Conan guy. I'd also maybe lean on I love Jim Zub's new Conan run. I really do. But my heart is with that Kurt Busiek, Carrie Nord run from
Okay.
Dark Horse years ago. I loved it. And I know that there's the Conan purists that think I'm wrong. And I love Zub's art. Like, I don't want anyone to think I'm a huge Zub Conan guy.
Yeah.
But it's like where your heart is. I'd also, uh, if they want to see something, I would even say Invincible. But
Yeah.
I'll
You can
say,
say Invincible.
okay, the Parker series, and then 100 Bullets,
Mm.
Brian Azzarello, Eduardo Rizzo. That is my all-time favorite comic series, hands down. Period. Are there things that happen in it that are maybe inappropriate? Yes. Is it an absolutely brilliant story? Yes. And you talked about how the joke comes from this side. You don't see where the big twists in that series come from here, and you don't even realize it's happening. You're like, oh my God. So I'd say 100 Bullets or the Parker series for sure. I almost said Lock and Key, though. I did almost say Lock and Key, but yeah, I'm going to say Parker from Darwin Cook or 100 Bullets. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm going to
see,
go with.
I've got the first volume of 100 Bullets. I haven't read it in a while, but yeah, I'm guilty. I've only read the first volume. That's a ride I need to take.
Yeah, I was right. I was reading it as it came out in floppies. And what's funny is the day that the 100th issue, so it's interesting. 100 Bullets released its final issue, and the series finale of Battlestar Galactica happened on the same week. And that was also the week that I accepted my job to come to Toronto from Edmonton. So it was
Wow.
a big week,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things coming to an end. And I smoked so much weed then too. So I was like, oh, this is really symbolic. It's a
There
really
you
symbolic closing of chapters for me as an adult, as a man. Yeah. So
there
yeah,
you
it was a
go,
big
brother.
week.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeez.
Yeah.
Uh, Fred, I think the collaboration between you and James, it's fantastic. James the artist and James the editor. I think you guys are putting together
Yeah. Yeah.
something that's really unique, really funny, and I don't know, humor comics don't always hit me the way they should, but I'm really having a fun time reading this. Anything else you would like to add, sir?
Um, uh, read books, They're good. Also, thank your kids' English teachers. They have a profound impact. I never would have been a writer if not for my grade 8 and 9 English teacher, who was always like she'd be disappointed in me because she said I wasn't trying my hardest, and it was so true. I wasn't. And in August, I have the reboot of Samurai Pizza Cats coming out from Nakama Press, which is something that I'm really, really, really excited about because I loved that cartoon when I was but a lad, and getting to write it is awesome. And I have a great editor, Chris, over at Nakama. She's amazing, and yeah, it's really cool, and I'm really excited. And Lorenzo DeSanto is the artist, and Fernando Ruiz does some work in it too, and they're crushing it. It's really cool to be part of that creative team. So yeah.
Excellent. Real quick, what do you think your childhood English teachers would think of Florida Hippopotamus Cocaine Massacre and you being an author on that?
I don't know. I don't know. I want to send her a PDF. I've got her email.
Oh, you do?
Her name is Mrs. Blewett. She taught at Londonderry Junior High back in the 90s. She does not like it when I call her Mrs. Blewett. She told me to call her by her first name, but I feel like that's disrespectful. So I sent her a hard copy of Dead Romans.
Yeah.
And she wrote back. She was very happy with it. She said, I'm going to email her a PDF and just see like, hey, I did this too. Yeah. We'll see. We'll find out. Tell you what, I'll get back to you. I'll tell you how she feels about it.
There you go for part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us, my friend.